As mentioned many times, what happens in life reflects the Torah portion of the week. We have a transition tomorrow. A new president is coming in, an old president is leaving. And there is not a confrontation, but a meeting, a transfer of power. And the transfer of power is supposed to be smooth, without any difficulties, so that our country can continue. Instead, despite his protestations, the present occupier of the White House, the President, Barack Obama, has chosen not to allow a smooth transition of power by his inaction. You see, sometimes an inaction is more damaging than an action, because it shows that you're too weak to say anything or do anything. But by not doing something, you allow that very thing to happen that you wish to happen, but you're afraid to be caught identifying with it. One word from Mr. Obama, and all of these protests, and some of them threatening to be violent, would never come to be. He wants the protests because he wants to hamper the ability of Donald Trump to govern this country according to the wishes of his constituents. I understand politics, but I don't understand viciousness. And although I can see cowardice, but I don't appreciate it. If you have something to say, say it. Don't be afraid to say it because it's not politically correct or because it'll damage your so-called legacy. This happens on the heels of Obama's refusal to veto the Security Council resolution against Israel. Obama did not have the cojones to vote for it because that's what he wanted, and that's what he believed. He says it. He wants a two-state solution. What's the two-state solution? Israel should be 9 miles wide at its most narrow point. It's an invitation for an invasion. Always was. Always will be. And he knows that Israel can't do that. So why is he for that? Not just to look good, because this is permanent. The real reason is he doesn't care if Israel exists. In fact, as far as he's concerned, the world would be better off with no Jews and no Israel. How would he fund this campaign? He'll fund other silly, stupid people to fund the democratic ideology. He'll find another George Soros. And Soros survived the Holocaust. He'll find some Jews who'll survive the destruction of Israel and be foolish enough to give him millions and billions of dollars. Not just him, but his ilk. That's who he is. That's what he believes. You don't have to go ahead and say something for one to understand what it is that you want. You look at what are going to be the consequences, the ultimate consequences that come from that particular position. The ultimate consequences are that if you have a two-state solution where there is no territorial changes, Israel is indefensible and therefore will die if she is stupid enough to accept those conditions, which is perfectly fine as far as the State Department was concerned 70 years ago. And 75 years ago, they didn't care if Jews were murdered in their millions. They prevented the several thousand or tens of thousands that could have come from Germany and other countries into this blessed shores. They had visas for it. There were people who had the money. People on the St. Louis had the money. It was only their indifference and their anti-Semitism, their hatred of Jews. And that's exactly what Obama and his ilk are. Closet anti-Semites. They can't say it. It's not popular. The Jews are just they're just too arrogant, too successful, too cocky. They should have disappeared, along with the Babylonians and the Persians and the Canaanites and the Egyptians. That's what all the Muslims say. That's what the church said until 1948. I know I'm saying generalities. People will argue on the generalities. But if you don't stand up to evil and allow evil to happen, then you are part of that evil. Those that did not stand up to Nazi murder are part and parcel of that murder. Those who did not allow the St. Louis people to come off the boat are responsible for their death. And whatever the consequences are of the so-called two-state solution, Barack Obama and John Kerry and his ilk are responsible, would be responsible for that. So that's who they are. The closet anti-Semites that are afraid to say so because it's not popular to say so. Black Lives Matter doesn't bother them. They're anti-Israel. They say so openly. Barack Obama cannot say that. They say it for him. The same way, Trump won. If he would say, stop it, this is not the way our government should go along, should happen. There has to be a transition of power. You have to allow for government to continue. He got it from Bush. So he can't openly say that he's for these protesters. But he winks for them. Even the story, which is a lot of BS, that somehow or other an appointee of the Obama administration would be in place of the Bushes, in place of Trump and Pence, that's a non-story. The Speaker of the House of Representatives is the one who succeeds the president if the president and the vice president are somehow or other killed. Next in line is the president pro tem. Then afterwards you have the cabinet members. It's not a cabinet member of the Obama administration to appoint. There is a succession. Obama is no longer president. and therefore the Speaker of the House will become the next president. Why did he allow this to go on, this non-news, with Wolf Schmitzer, Pitzer, and some other names I could call him? Why did he allow this? Because he wants this to happen. He'd like this to happen. Can't say he wants it to happen. It's not nice. Death of another human being, death of a president. But that's what happens when you're an ideologue who believes that you're right no matter what. So let's get to the Parsha of the week. What does the transfer of power have to do with the Parsha of the week? There is a transfer of power. Pharaoh is the most powerful man on earth, and he's about to meet his match, some shepherd from Midian that had been a slave, child, escaped death, and grew up to be a man of God. And now there's going to be a transition of power from the physical most powerful man on earth to the most powerful spiritual man on earth. And there are people who are supposed to help in this process of this transition of power. And those are the elders of Israel. And the elders of Israel, they chicken out and leave. That seems to be the interpretation. But I believe that there's another interpretation. These elders were jealous that God chose Moses over them. In other words, Moses was from the wrong party, the wrong side of the tracks. And therefore they could not participate in the smooth transition of power from Pharaoh to Moses, and so they left. It's exactly what happens when Mr. Trump will come and the Democrats en masse will not be there. Right now there's over a third of them. There may be as many as half. I wish all of them would not show up, because that would show their true colors. They cannot stand the fact that someone else won. It's called sore losers. They wanted to say that Trump was a sore loser before he won, because they thought they were winning. But that's in the Torah. The Torah says that there are people who will not want to be part of the transition of power. So you know what happens? Those people who failed to come and escort Moses, they got canned. They lost their power. They had been the heads of the state, and in a few short months they were deposed. And that's exactly what will take place. You see, mark my words, all of those people who will not be there tomorrow, all those people within the next couple of years will lose their position in one form or another. At any rate, transition of power is the will of the Creator. He wants that Pharaoh should give the keys over to Moses. Trump is just a transitory leader. Ultimately, the ultimate leader of mankind hasn't come yet, but we know him as the Mashiach. And when Mashiach comes, we should all be ready for the smooth transition of power from the material to the spiritual.